All right, we got another Monday night darkroom print. So I managed to get this Monday relatively free. This is the selected image that we're going to be printing one of. I'm hoping I can get two. So this is the same Fomapan 100 that we've been printing off of the last session or two. And it was run in Ilford, replenished DD at 24 degrees Celsius, continuous agitation for 8.5 minutes. Way too long of a time. I didn't have a processing time, and I figured I needed to start somewhere and needed to run a control strip while I was at it. So I threw it in there while I ran the control strip, and yeah, it's really, really, really high contrast. I mean, we're basically at a grade 0 with my modification to make this condenser enlarger more like a diffusion enlarger. And it's still pretty heavy on the contrast. Anyway, all that being said, this particular image we're going to print. And so we're going to do a grade 0 filter, and let's see, we're at F28 now, so F4, F5, 6, and I believe 30 seconds is the time that we've got set. Same as the last negative. That should at least get us in the ballpark. As always, we are using Ilford Multigrade, the newer Multigrade RC Deluxe purple label. This stuff is fantastic. It's the pearl finish resin coated paper in 8x10. So let's go ahead and make our first exposure and see what that gets us. I'm probably going to have to make 2 or 3 versions of this. What I've been doing lately is doing the initial exposure here just to make sure that everything is what it is, and then off camera I've been doing, ooh, that was really fast. Let's try that again. 33 seconds is what this one will run for. And then off camera, what I've been doing is generating a couple more copies of the same print, because, you know, once I have a good print and I know what the time is and any dodging and burning I may or may not have to do, typically other family members want the same image or a version of it or a copy of it. So I've been making 2 or 3 copies of that. And then what I've been doing recently, which I really like, is I've been going and making a version of this print, the same print, except a black border around the edge of the paper. So I have the image and then the white border from the frame, and then like an 1/8 of an inch black on the edge of the paper. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I really like that. All right, let's go ahead and get this washed, rinsed, all that good stuff, or developed, stopped, fixed, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, this is a really good example of the, the kind of contrast that we're basically dealing with here. So this is way too dark over on this side, and this is just about blown out. Now when you look at the negative, as it's being projected onto the easel, there's detail there. But if I give it any more exposure time to bring this detail in, this is going to be entirely too dark. And there is detail here. So we're on grade 0 now. I really don't want to have to do a grade 0, I might try a dodge and burn a little bit on this side just to kind of bring this up a smidge, except we've got this arm sticking out here. That's a bit of a problem. So I actually may just do the whole thing. I don't know. I mean, I can't really do a split grade at this point because I'm already at a grade 0. Let me... I wonder what a grade 0 would look like. Let's try a grade 0 at 30 seconds and just see if maybe a little bit less contrast will bring these up, this up a little bit and this down a little bit. I can always punch in this to taste with a grade 5 if I need to. So looks like we're going to be doing a revision of that and see what that looks like. I really kind of want to, yeah, we're going to have to, let me do a 0, and see where we're at to get this, figure out a time to get this into range, and then figure out what dodging and burning we need to do with a grade 5. All right. Let me get this in the wash, and then we'll do one more iteration. All right, so that's not really much better. This is a grade 0. I mean, I think we're kind of at the limits of the minimum amount of contrast I can get with this particular condenser and enlarger. So now, I mean, this was 30 seconds, and this has even less density. So that additional 3 seconds to 33 seconds made a difference. This really isn't significantly lighter, so we're going to have to do split grade and dodge and burn for each of the grades. So this is going to be an interesting thing. We're basically only going to get this one printed this session, I think. All right, so let me get set up to do that. I think I need to flip the negative because the part I want to dodge, this part is on the back side of the easel, and this part's on the front side, and I really want this part on the front side and this part on the back side so I can just dodge while we're doing it. So I gotta get this washed and then get that set up. Okay, so we've got the negative flipped around. This is at f2.8, so we're going to go f5.6. We're going to add 1/4 of a stop of exposure, so we're going to go from 30 seconds to 36 seconds. Grade 0 filter. The 1/4 of a stop is really 35.6 seconds. I'm just going to round up to 36. Now for our dodging, I've got this card that we're going to use, and basically I'm just going to come through here like this, and for the 36 seconds we're just going to go like this. And what that will allow us to do is get a nice exposure here and bring this detail in, and over here we're gonna lose a pretty significant amount of our exposure. This is going to come up quite a bit, and then we'll, hopefully here in the middle we'll have to work something out. But that's currently the plan. Again, it's just a gray, or not a gray, it's a black piece of mat board that I keep around. It's also the same one that I use when I make my black borders. I just pull this up like this and set it down on top of the paper here. It's ever so slightly smaller than an 8x10, so it puts a nice little border here. Then I just flip the paper around and do the same thing again. Works a treat. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. So let's get this ready to rock and roll and see what this looks like. And then I'll be able to make kind of a judgment call on how much either dodging and burning I need to do, or how much of the grade 5 I need to do. All right, paper goes in here. Okay, here we go, 36 seconds. We're just going to do this back and forth like this. We just want to make sure that, you know, whatever we do, maybe do a little bit like this. We just want to make sure that we're not doing it exactly the same every time. Okay, let's see what that looks like. That is a significant improvement. This is pretty low contrast in here, so I can probably hit this with a grade 5, dodge it even more, and hit it with a grade 5, just to bring that in. Over here, we need to add more time. So over here, we have nothing showing up here, and in fact, we are just ever so slightly, barely. I mean, I don't think I can really even see it. Sometimes I think I see it when I'm looking at it, but other times not so much. Coming off of paper white here, so we definitely need more exposure time just to get this to where we can actually see the border there, because right now you can't, which means we need more grade 00 exposure time. So we're going to go from 1/4 of a stop more exposure. I think we're close. We'll do 1/3 of a stop more. We don't have to get too drastic. And then figure out from there whether we need to go to a 1/2 a stop or stay at 1/3 of a stop. 1/4 of a stop was probably a little too timid, but I kind of suspected I was close with the 33-second exposure, and so quarter of a stop was kind of the goal, but that's not enough. So we're going to do 1/3 of a stop and then figure if that's enough or not. All right, we're still not. So I went to 1/2 a stop more exposure from 30 seconds, which is 42 seconds. And we're still not coming off of paper white here. Wow. I mean, this is a lot better, significantly, like really low yucky exposure or low yucky contrast. So I'm definitely going to have to really be aggressive with masking this off so that when I hit it with the grade 5 filter. So what I need to do is work out what grade 5 exposure time will affect just this area, and maybe, you know, some of the darker parts here, you know, but not affect the rest of the image, what the maximum time is for that, and then work out my dodge time for grade 00 to get the minimum exposure in grade 00. Anyway, yeah, I thought for sure a half a stop more exposure would bring this down off of paper white, but it's nowhere near what I was, man, that's just really super tense. Anyway, so we'll do one more. I don't really want to go a full stop, so we'll do 2/3 of a stop, and if that doesn't do it, I don't know, I think I'll just leave it at that. I think we're getting closer. You know, this has gradually been coming down further and further. I just don't want to double my exposure time. I just really would prefer not to do that. I might have to. I might, you know what? So we did 1/2 a stop. I might just double the exposure time and just see what that gives us. All right. Man. Okay. So after looking at it a little bit closer, I decided to go a full 60 seconds. So add one more stop, go from 30 seconds to 60 seconds. I don't know if you can see it here in the video, but we're finally starting to get texture. And basically, this is indoors, and the sun is blasting right here against the curtain that's hanging there. Now, this side over here, I dodged heavily. I don't care so much that it looks like this because once you hit it with grade 5, it will pull a significant amount of that contrast and darkness back. The only thing I have to worry about is finding the grade 5 exposure time where we're not going to affect the rest of the print, the maximum exposure time, because this whole section here is significantly darker than even this section here, because there's a light up here. You can see a little bit of the chandelier hanging up here. There's a light up here that is lighting this section here. That's why this whole ceiling section here is lighter. But that being said, I can now start to see along the border here, and you can even see it a little bit on the video. I can now start to see there's an actual border there. I think we need still another quarter of a stop, or maybe a third of a stop, before that really starts to become defined. I don't necessarily want this to be totally blown out to paper white, and you can start to see the curtains coming in here. See down here, you can start to see the curtains coming in. So we do need a little more exposure, but we're pretty close to the butter zone. So I'm at f5.6 now. The lens goes to f2.8. I don't necessarily want to go to f4 in 30 seconds, but just in the interest of keeping my exposure times down to a reasonable time, I think I'm going to have to. All right, this is the grade 5 print. 4.5 seconds is almost too much, so we're going to start with that. Then if we need to, we'll dial it back to 3.5 seconds. But this will basically restore all of the density here on the right hand side. We're starting to get a little bit here. It's essentially going to restore all the density on the left hand side of the image that we're going to dodge out of the grade 0 exposure. So this is just going to be expose the whole thing straight for 4.5 seconds, and then do a 38-second exposure, dodging this part like we did previously. And we'll see what that looks like next. Okay, we're going to do our grade 5 exposure first at 4.5 seconds. And then we're going to do our grade 00 exposure at 38 seconds. And we're going to dodge the areas that we want to reduce our exposure time. So here's grade 5, 4.5 seconds. All right. Now, let's see. 3, 35, 36, 37, 38. We're going to flip that over. We're going to put the grade 00 filter in. We're going to get our dodge tool ready. All right, here we go. Okay, let's see what that looks like. All right, I'm gonna have to revisit this next week because we're after midnight. We are getting some pretty good detail in here, and we are finally off of paperwhite here on the right hand side. I think I'm gonna have to go back to f5.6 and over 60, basically 76 seconds exposure, just so that I have more finite control over dodging this area. It's too hard to control the exposure here on the grade 00 at f4 and 38 seconds. It's just not enough of the finite control, and the face here is too dark, and just overall in general I couldn't exercise enough dodge control. So yeah, I think I'm okay with the 4.5 seconds. I might just dial it back to 4 seconds and 80 seconds total, but I'll have to do that next week because it's after midnight and I need to go to bed. So that's this edition of Laundry Darkroom Prints. We will work on this particular image more next week, and I will see all of you then.